What is going on? Welcome to this week's episode of the Second of Strength podcast. Wherever you are, as always, I'm just grateful that you're spending your valuable seconds with me. I'm excited about this week's episode. I think it's an area that I've worked on a lot over my life. We're going to talk about emotions, managing our emotions, how to overcome our emotions, and all the fun things that come along with that. And I think the first thing to get out of the way is that our emotions are not bad. Like, emotions make us who we are. It's really important. But I was thinking about the movie Inside Out. If you've ever seen the movie Inside Out, it's about a little girl, and inside of her, she's got these emotions in her brain. She's got joy and disgust and sadness and anger. And there's a couple of key lessons that we learned from the movie Inside Out that I think that we can take away and apply to our lives if we really think about it and we really start using this information in the way that's going to help us and benefit us. And ultimately what it comes down to is we want to manage our emotions. Emotions make a great wingman. They can drive shotgun in our car, but our emotions don't get to drive. They don't get to control us. They don't get to dictate what we do, how we do it. They don't get to do that. And there's certain times where we can allow that, and we want that to happen because our emotions are good. They make us who we are. There are times when emotions are so critical, and really, they drive empathy and they drive sympathy and all these wonderful things that we have in this life. But emotions can also get us into trouble. They can cause rifts in our lives. They can cause pain. They can cause all these heartaches and issues if we don't check them the right way. And so again, this isn't about not having emotions. This is about controlling our emotions and using our emotions to the way that we want. And basically, we want to choose how to respond to our emotions. So a couple of things from the movie Inside Out. And if you remember, again, joy, sadness, anger, and disgust. And they have all of these moments and all of these reactions, right? You can remember in the movie where something happens to the little girl in anger, like it's his turn, and all of a sudden he just like lights his hair on fire, and she starts crying, she starts whining, and it's just this emotional reaction. Well, what we want to know and what comes from this movie is that emotions are just information. So something happens to us in real life. We are reacting to some sort of a scenario, whether that is something at school, something that somebody does to us, something that we're feeling. Maybe we're alone, maybe we're sad, all of these things. But all of that is information that is coming back into us. It's telling us something. The question is, what are we going to do with that? And it doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's bad, even if we're feeling sad, even if we're feeling lonely, even if we're feeling frustrated or angry. Those aren't bad or good inherently, because in any given situation, it may be the complete appropriate response to whatever is going on. And everybody has these emotions. And so the first thing we want to recognize is that emotions are just information. So if you're a teenager, and one thing that we talk a lot about is that as we develop on our brain, there's two parts of our brain. There's the middle part of our brain, which is this emotional part of our brain, and then there's the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making and logic and rationale. And as we grow, as we develop, the logical part of our brain develops more and becomes a deeper, more important part of our daily decision making, where earlier on in our lives, it's really about the emotions. It really is. And if you think about a toddler who, maybe you took away their tablet, or a baby and you took away their binky or whatever, there's just an immediate emotional reaction, right? Or you've seen, everybody's either had it experience themselves, or you've seen it happen in the grocery store where there is a kid lying in the middle of a grocery aisle having a full-on tantrum. Why? Because mom wouldn't buy him a Hot Wheels car, or mom wouldn't buy her a pony, or whatever it is. And so there's just this emotional reaction. Well, the kid just can't control that, right? Because that is emotions controlling who they are. That's emotions driving the car, instead of being a wingman in shotgun who is helping tell what the situation is going on, but not driving the car. And so that's the big difference between it. So one, emotions are information. Number two, from this movie, from Inside Out, we recognize and we see that these four emotions, and I'm sure that we have other emotions, but the movie depicts it as these four, but these four emotions make this little girl who she is. It makes her who she is. And what the movie's all about is that over time, she, because of these core memories, moving these different things, she lets sadness run things. She lets sadness run things instead of being equal and equitable and managing the emotions herself. She lets sadness just run things. And one of the challenges is that our brain is very malleable. So it is going to change over time, but it's going to change in the way that we feed it. The brain is going to change in the way that we feed it. So if we are feeding it negativity and we're feeding it sad things and sad movies and sad memories and sad thoughts, well, the result is that we are going to project sadness in our lives. Same thing if we are projecting happiness and we're taking in things that are good and positive and happy, then we're going to project happiness out into the world. Same thing with anger, same thing with disgust. And I think what happens more often than not is that as we go through life, we allow whatever is coming in to dictate what is going out. And we've got to basically put a stop to that. But again, our emotions make us us. And we learned that from this movie. And it can be your greatest strengths. It can be your weakness. It can tell you the things that you need to work through. But one thing that's really important is it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It's just the way the brain works, right? It's just the way the brain works. So the third thing we learned from this movie is this little girl works best when no one emotion has control over her, when she is giving appropriate responses to the situations in life. And one of the challenges in the movie, like I said, is that sadness takes over. One emotion controls everything. One emotion controls everything, and anger and disgust. And all of a sudden now there's no light, right? There's just sadness. There's no positivity in her life. And so it's those three things that first I want us to take away from this movie. 1, emotions are information. 2, emotions make you you. And 3, no one emotion has control over you. So here's what happens. Something happens to you. There's a stimulus that happens to us. We immediately have an emotional reaction to it because we're humans. That's what happens. That's the moment I want you to stop. I want you to stop because, again, emotions are information. They don't get to control us. We get to control them. So in any given moment, anytime you're feeling something, good, bad, positive, negative, angry, disgust, whatever it is, you get to pause and ask yourself if that is the emotion that you want to feel. Is that what you want to feel in your life? Is that the person you want to be? Is that the way you want to react to that situation? I always talk about, excuse me, I was talking about your 1 second of strength. And the 1 second of strength is that you have the power in 1 second to take over those emotions and turn to the logical part of your brain, turn to the rational part of your brain. That is what hacking your brain is. That's what your 1 second of strength is. It's in that moment, in that second that you feel that emotional response, you get to choose how you're going to respond to that. And so you find your 1 second of strength, you decide how you want to react to that moment, and then you act the way you want to feel. It's very simple. And now it's very simple in theory. It's very hard in practicality, and it's a learned trait over time as you grow, as you develop, as you learn. But if you think about in your past life, you think about when you acted maybe inappropriately to a situation, right? Maybe you said something you didn't want to say, or maybe you laughed at a situation you shouldn't have laughed at. You know, maybe you should have been crying and you were laughing, or maybe there was a sad situation that you were, that maybe you shouldn't have been sad about, or something, right? There's always something in your past where you, and a lot of it times it's overreaction, like an anger, right? Where maybe it was road rage or something like that, where somebody said something and you said something back that you shouldn't have said, and you hurt someone's feelings because of it. So there's always something in your life that you can call back on and kind of go, man, should I have reacted that way? So think about that situation and think about how you should have reacted, what you should have done. Because I think one of the biggest steps is as we move forward, and there's three different things that I want you to do when you have emotions. So you take in this information. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to pause. I just want you to pause. I want you to recognize and accept that you are feeling an emotion, good, bad, negative, positive, whatever it is, right? Feel, recognize, and accept that you're feeling that emotion. That's the very first thing I want you to do, because in that moment, you've decided that you are in control. In that moment, you've found your 1 second of strength, and you've decided that you are in control of whatever that emotion is. The second thing is I want you to decide on appropriate response. Just because you're feeling angry doesn't mean you have to be angry. You can pause, you can take that deep breath, you can walk around if you need to. You can step back, whatever you need to do. But so you pause, take that deep breath, recognize and accept, and then decide on the appropriate response. And one of the things that I think is very helpful with this is, again, think back of those situations that have triggered you in the past or triggered you recently, right? Maybe there's something that, a friend says, or a parent or a coworker or a boss or whoever. There's always something that this person does that drives you completely batty, right? Drives you absolutely insane. You know exactly what I'm talking about. There's always something that somebody does that drives you absolutely crazy. So think of that scenario that you find yourself in repetitively over and over and over again. And I want you to think about how you want to be in that situation. Who are you? What type of person are you? What kind of person are you? And how does that person respond in any given situation to those moments that are driving you crazy, that are frustrating you, that are making you angry? Who are you? Who do you want to be? And how would that person respond to that scenario? That's how I want you to respond. And so when you have those situations, you pause, you take a deep breath, you recognize and accept you're feeling this emotion, and then you get to 3, tap into the scenario that you've seen in the past and change to the way you want to be. You can probably hear my dog in the background. He is whining because he feels like he's trapped down here in the basement, which he is trapped in the basement because he didn't get out before I started recording this podcast. So, but those are the 3 things. Pause, take a deep breath, recognize and accept that you're feeling an emotion, and then choose to respond the way that you want to respond based on the person that you want to be. It's very simple. It's those 3 things. So again, this movie Inside Out, it's good, it's funny, it's cute. If you haven't seen it, go see it. But as you see it, think about yourself. Think about you in these situations, and that these different emotions in your brain, they're just emotions. They're just information. They are telling you a stimulus and response. This dog. They're telling you a stimulus and response to any situation, and you get to decide and you get to dictate who you're going to be. You get to decide who you want to be. And I know when you choose happiness, people want to be happy. Everyone wants to be happy, right? I want to be happy. You want to be happy. Well, happiness doesn't happen every day. And it doesn't happen in every situation. We're not always happy. We're not always joy from the movie Inside Out. But we have all of these other emotions. But we get to decide in any given moment if we're going to be joyful through it, or we're going to be something else. We get to decide that. And too often than not, we let the other emotions in our brain dictate who we are going to become. And I don't want that to happen anymore. I want you to be happy. I want you to find happiness. I want people that are around you to be happier because you're happy. I want you to know that you are in control of that. And you may need to change something. You need to change your circumstances, your not your circumstances, but your, where you're at. You may need to change your relationships. You may need to change maybe your job. Maybe you need to change schools. Maybe you need to change your friend group. There's always something that you can change. You can change where you're at. That's what I meant by circumstances. You can go outside. You can get some more sunlight. You can change lots of different things, but you're in control of that. And the moment that we let our emotions control who we are in terms of feeding the negative emotions or feeding the emotions that aren't serving us, we're going to keep going down that path because we get really comfortable with it. Our brain is learning that is what we're becoming. But you can stop that. You can stop that at any given moment. You can become the person you want to become. So if this episode helped you, I hope it did. Share it. You can screenshot it and tag me on Instagram at @RealTannerClark. You can text it to somebody. It also helps me a ton if you go and leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this. Because ultimately, when you leave a positive review, Apple will serve this podcast up to more people, and we can help more and more people, because that's what I really want to do. I want to help as many people as I can. And today, I hope this helped you. So wherever you're at, I'll leave you the way I always leave you. Go find your 1 second of strength and choose to be happy.